That is Dash. Moving on, we have Polkadot. Okay, so lots of zones here. Hasn't done much, but it has created a new zone. So it rejected this area. I'm going to delete this one too. Clean these up a bit. So, I mean, it did reject this area here, but then you had this full bull candle here engulfing it. So there was no trade set up because there was rejection, but there wasn't new price structure. So what I mean by that is you had this candle come out, but then when it came back up to retest this, these are all solid candles all the way through. So no trade on that one. Price is still below this 4-hour moving average, way below on the daily, so definitely bearish still. Looking for a short position. I'm going to delete this zone because it's pretty big and ugly here. Let's see what else we can delete here just to clean up this area. So we kind of see that price created a new zone up here, which is good. That might be our zone for the month of shorting this. So ideally something like this, if price came back up to it, probably won't. You can see this nice rejection, and then boom, a lot of bear momentum out of this market. But there is a zone here that looks to be pretty significant. So to take a short on this, I mean, this is kind of like, yes, it is bearish, and yeah, you're probably good to short this just overall. But as far as like entries, I mean, this zone's significant. It's gonna have to break this area, and then if it breaks this area, the next main one is this one, which I mean, you can see is also very important, right? It's held this. You can see these big wicks in this zone. So because this area is so significant too, and it's right below this one, as far as taking a short position, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, like, yes, if price comes back up to this area, 506 here, then yeah, you can short as long as it rejects properly. But the next thing you look at is like if it breaks this zone here, shorting it, because then the bears are with us and they're heading lower. But because this zone is right here and it's so significant, you literally have to consider a trade like this, and that is not worth the risk. So yes, I think it's bearish. I think it's okay to short overall long term, but as far as a trade entry, I mean, this is not worth it, right? Like even best case scenario breaks the zone after you can see how many times it's rejected. So this area seems to be holding price up, but let's just say in theory, if it breaks this area, okay, we're going to the downside, we're shorting it, but like, where are you shorting it to? Because this area is very significant and has held price dramatically too. So I wouldn't be comfortable shorting this really anytime soon, because there's just too much areas of support in here to hold price, and then maybe even cause it to retrace somewhat, right? I mean, who knows if this gets bought up in this zone and then it just doesn't even go lower. So yeah, for me, for Polkadot, like, there's just no significant entries, at least until, yeah, I mean, what'll most likely happen is price does break this area, and then once it gets into this area, it kind of creates a new zone. So right now this zone is really thick, and what it's going to do is it's going to create a thinner zone, kind of just like this one did. So like before, if we just delete this, before, you can see, like, if you go off of this wick here, you can see how big this zone was, and then what happens is it starts to shrink. As we get more price inside the zone, we can see it create new zones, and then it gives us a better kind of like description of what's going to happen, what might happen. So now we know that this zone's a little bit thinner. We got most of these candles within this area. It's just this one that stretches out, but we know that this is the primary zone kind of thing. So this is what we have to break. So ideally, once price comes down into this massive area here, because this is all we have to go by for right now, and let's say it comes into this area and it just starts like flatlining right here, you're like, oh, okay, the zone is actually right here now. And then we just have to break this zone to head down to this zone, if that makes sense. So you're basically just zone trading now, lower and lower and lower. It's all you can really go off of, because as far as ranges, you don't have them for the month. As far as moving averages, this is way below. So like, you can't even this is just bearish. That's all you know about this is it's just bearish, and you have to just go by zone to zone. And you know, as these zones are really thick because there's just not a whole lot of previous history on these zones, you just have to wait till it hits the big zone and then creates a smaller zone and then go off that zone and target the next zone. So I know it's a little bit confusing, but yeah, that's all I got for Polkadot. That's our best case scenario, is just let it keep breaking these zones and kind of maybe set up a little bit better and be a little bit more clear and precise for entries and exits. That's really all you can do for Polkadot. So